mandate that you have a strategic plan. They mandate that you have a strategic planning process, okay? But most institutions understand you can't get through the process without having a plan. The biggest issue that a lot of institutions have is that they go through a great deal of effort to develop the plan, and then it's put on a shelf. So I think the beauty of what we're doing is that we've had full disclosure on the front end. We've had inclusion throughout the process. We've been very open. As you all know, the entire plan is on the web in terms of the minutes of the meeting. We have this program called the Provost Program, where we are sharing with the world every aspect of the plan through a series of programs. We're being open, but we're tying the plan back to the performance of each individual person on this campus. No one on this campus can submit annual goals that are not tied back to the strategic plan. So the difference is that we're going to fully implement our plan, and that's my history. At a former institution that I worked, I was also in charge of developing the strategic plan, and we achieve 100% goal. That's unheard of in business, nonprofit, and it's certainly unheard of in the university setting. But we achieved 100% of goal. But what that simply means is that you can't pass the plan, get it approved, and then don't monitor the plan, not on a monthly or quarterly basis, but on a daily basis. So even in my goals for the year that I had to present to the president, you will see it's tied back to each of the strategic priorities of the university. So it's not enough just to have a good planning process. It's not even good enough to have a fancy looking plan. What is extremely important is that you carry out that which you do. The other thing that has been a problem in strategic planning is that budgets aren't linked to the plan. You go through this whole process, and then at the end of the day, you don't have any money to carry out any of this. We're in the process of budget hearings. We had our first set of hearings on Monday. Started around 9 o'clock, and we finished around 8:30 that night. I went home about 11:45, okay? So we're meticulously looking at what people are saying they want to do for the year, and then we're asking the question, how does this relate back to the strategic plan? Which strategic priority does this relate to? If it doesn't relate to a strategic priority, it's not in the budget. That's the extent that you have to go to make sure that you have a functional strategic plan.
Thank you, Richard. Well, let's toss the Q&A back to Michelle. Michelle, what do you think as far as with the strategic plan and the core values so far?
I know that one of the core values was student-centeredness. Now, when you say student-centeredness, could you elaborate on what that means to you?
Yeah. When I hear the word student-centeredness, it means that everything that we do at the institution is for the betterment of the student. The course scheduling, for an example, should not be for the benefit of the faculty. It should be for the convenience of the students. It simply means that as we are developing policies for the university, that we should create that policy in such a way that it's going to create a value added for students. It also means that as we are developing our activities for the university, that we should always remember that academics should be the core function of the institution, and we should make sure that students have a good experience in that environment. Student-centeredness does not mean, however, that students are always right, because they aren't. But it does mean that this is a teaching environment, so even when a student is wrong, you take the time to use it as a teaching moment, to make sure that you help them understand what did you do wrong, what are the steps you need to do to correct that, and then keep them whole. Unfortunately, a part of our responsibility is if a student goes way off track, academically or from a social standpoint, we have to engage in sanctions. And they could range from anything to community service all the way to expulsion. But even if it gets to the point of expelling a student, one of the things that Dr. Brown, myself, and Dr. Gunter, and all the other administrators, I think, do that a lot of other institutions don't do, it's not about trying to destroy the student. It's trying to help the students understand what you did to lead to this action. But we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to help the students understand how they re-engage back into the process, if not here, somewhere else. It may sound a little funny to hear that because there are some egregious acts sometimes that individual students do. But we got to focus on still making sure that student is whole. This is what you did, and we try to separate what you did from who you are, but more importantly, who you have the potential to become. And so it simply means that the students are at the center of our work. Not the faculty, not the president, not anybody else. The students are at the center of what we do. So then we revolve our work around that.
Okay. All right. Any more questions as far as regarding the core values, with innovation and discovery? I know that was a very interesting one as far as with the core values. Dejanique, did you have one last question regarding that to Dr. Silver?
Yes, I know that the values that Chasity listed, some included respect, integrity, things of that nature, which go along with having to expel students or give them sanctions. So how do you propose we as student leaders help those core values come to pass within our community?
One of the things that we're hoping for is that every student leader, from student government to president to the illustrious Ms. Clark Atlanta University, that as you're going about your day-to-day planning, first of all, make sure that students know what they are. There's not a meeting that I have that I don't have listed the core values and the strategic priorities of the university. That's something I would like to see the students do. The other thing is to make sure that as you're developing your social action agenda for Ms. CAU or student government, that you include a discussion about the core values. Students, the new students who came in this year, we spent an inordinate amount of time of going through those with them, and now they are being engaged in the same discussion through the CAU experience and the freshman year experience. We need to do that at every class.
All right. Now that has been a great discussion, shall I say?
Yes.
In a few minutes that we have left, let us look at the strategic priorities. The strategic priorities are to design and build and execute institutional accountability for enrollment management, to build institutional capacity, to align learning, knowledge, discovery, and performance, to improve and maintain financial strength and viability, and to embrace and provide leadership and community development and environment sustainability. Dr. Silver, why do you think that we need all of these priorities as far as with segment 3 that we have to go?
Yeah, and I think the question too is why do you need these priorities and how they link back to the core values? Essentially, the core values begin to be the thing that undergirds what you do. So no matter what you're discussing, whether it's finance, whether it's student enrollment, then the question becomes, don't get too far away from your core values. Those are the foundational pieces. So respect. So as we may disagree, but let's respect each other. If I ask the Dean of Enrollment Services for numbers, what is our present student population? Don't come and tell me we got 15,000 students when we know we have 3,800 students. That's integrity, okay? So taking upon those core values as we are dealing with the five strategic priorities, we are linking how we carry out those priorities back to the core values. So when you're talking about enrollment management, which is priority number one, we want to make sure that there's integrity in the process, okay? When we're talking about strategic priority number 2, okay, building capacity, we want to make sure that we do it the right way, okay? We don't want any quick fixes. When we're talking about priority number 3, for an example, performance, discovery, innovation, we want to make sure that in the classroom, there's integrity. Students, we don't want anybody cheating. We want integrity outside the classroom. Professors, in terms of the work that they produce, is yours, okay? But we also want to create new knowledge. We want to create new opportunities for students. And then the 4th one is really building and maintaining the financial stability of the institution. We can't do any of those other things if we don't have the resources to make it happen. And then if you look at the history of this illustrious institution, we have always, always been a leader in community service and community development. We want to sustain that, but we want to add a new piece to that leadership. We need to make sure that in terms of environmental sustainability, Clark Atlanta University is creating a paradigm for effectiveness in that particular area. So when you begin to look at those 5 priorities and you look at the core values, they do intersect, but the core values become the foundation from which you have the discussion and from which you carry out your responsibility. Because if as an administrator, I don't have integrity, you're not gonna respect me. And if I don't carry myself in a way that demands respect, you're not gonna respect me. You can't just say I'm gonna respect Dr. Silver because he's the provost and vice president of academic affairs. I know better than that. I'm not even gonna try to go down there. I'm only gonna be respected to the extent that I earn your respect. And once I earn your respect, it's not something that I have in the bank. I got to do it every day. I got to make sure that I carry myself in a way that the students, the faculty, the staff, and administration respect me. Because if they don't respect me, we can't get any of this stuff done. Because nobody's going to follow a leader that they don't respect. So you see how the core values then undergird the very existence of our plan, but it also undergirds the possibility of us achieving everything in the plan.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Silver, for the overview of the strategic priorities. And thank you all for coming out and joining us, Ms. Michelle Russell, Mr. Richard Robertson, and last but never least, Ms. Dejanique Garrison, and especially last but never least, Dr. Silver. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'm delighted, and I just want all of our audience to know that this is what it's all about. It's about our students, and I would put Clark Atlanta University students against any student anywhere. We have the best.
Well, next month on the Provost Show, we will examine more and look deeper into the strategic priorities. Thanks again for watching the Provost Show. I'm your host, Chasity Evans.